the secretary. Yeah. It looks just like her.
Where is she?
She's still on the steps.
Is she coming on our tour?
Yeah, she is. Yeah, that's the secretary.
Lucille Balls' secretary.
Correct.
She's coming on our tour.
For people that don't know, this was Lucy's private secretary for 23 years, Wanda Clark.
I didn't know you were coming. I didn't know Lucy was still doing this.
I would have enough brains not to.
Rick told me, I said, it gets out of good on our bus.
I think it's a little more challenging every year.
It's fun, I love it. And this is Rick, my dear friend.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow afternoon at the Reg for lunch.
Yes.
1:30. Yep, 1:30.
I'm so happy you're on the
Yeah, this is an extra treat.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah, it's full.
Good, we'll have a good time.
We're getting there. We're waiting for
Lucy days, but the next era.
Lucy gave me this when we were making an inventory of the house. And if you see a picture of Lucy, big Lucy, she's probably wearing this ring.
Oh.
Little Lucy gave it to me. And she gave quite a few of Lucy's things to her friends. But anyway, I wear it all the time. It's very pretty.
It went to the right person.
Yes.
A couple? Escapees? Why are you here? Oh dear. Okay. We're waiting for some people.
The only one.
One of the few left, yes. One of the few left.
This lady was
And we're
one of
glad
the
to have
people
you.
left who knew Lucille Balls. She was her personal secretary.
Lucy was a very generous and warm and giving person. You don't stay nearly 30 years unless something's right. And Lucy was very loyal.
Oh.
That's heavy, Lucy. This is my little friend. Oh, isn't that tolerated 71 years? Oh, gosh.
No, they're too young. Look at them all. They're all sitting up, taking in oxygen. We're kind of fading.
How long have you had this problem?
Today is Wanda Clark, Lucy's personal secretary for 23 years. She's sitting up front here, and she will give you information. If you have a question, I'm going to put her on the mic as much as I possibly can. You're going to save my voice for me, Wanda. Okay.
I'm so excited to see you. I forgot. We have to be back.
Oh, okay. What time is that? 3:30? We should. Oh, yeah, we'll be back. Anytime you're ready, we'll roll. Okay. Now, I want to tell you folks, for those of you that haven't been here, on the corner, housed in this orange brick building, Lou Studios, fashioned after the studios at 847, and I can't remember the name of the street. See there? Lillian Way in California. Next door is the Lucy Desi Museum, which is a treasure in of itself, as this is. This is all about the birth of television, radio to television, and to the I Love Lucy show. Okay? The next museum over has a black and white awning in front of it. That's about Lucy's personal life and Desi's personal life from birth through their professional accomplishments. So please stop and visit the museums. They're wonderfully done, and it's a treasure to have them here, and I hope you all enjoy them. We're headed down Main Street now, and there's a couple restaurants on the right that I point out, the Pub and Lissandro's, and I try to do that to help you folks out when you're here just so you know, there's a local place. The two restaurants I told you about. Theater of Jamestown. Lucy was very dedicated to the efforts of the Little Theater, contributed money to them over the years, enough so it enabled them to purchase this building. It is on my left. You'll see Lucille Ball Little Theater here. And it's home to our local thespians. So our local actors perform here. They put on really good shows. So if you're ever around and are able to catch a performance, you would love it. This building was purchased by Little Theater in 1927. Originally, it was built in 1891. It was the Ellen Opera House. And once Little Theater bought it in 68, because of disrepair, I mean, it was really kind of falling apart, they trimmed the seats from 1,800 down to 426, and they installed new lighting and a soundboard. And just on Pine Street, we just passed it, and there's no evidence of it there, but used to be Jones Tasty Baking Company. And they had, see, Wanda remembers that, don't you? Yes, and they had Swedish Limpa rye bread that they made homemade, and they sent it to Lucy's house throughout her lifetime. Isn't that something, a piece of Jamestown? And of course, Lucy loved lilacs as well. So she had, I think, hybrid plants done out there because they didn't have the growing season like what we had. But so we're headed for, and I'm looking around at all you folks and I'm thinking, look at how many people made an effort to come, and it's really nice. And I'm so glad the bus is full and that you have Wanda Clark here. So
It's our lucky day.
Site of Jamestown High School. This, of course, was not the building that Lucy attended. This was built in 34 actually. But behind it is an athletic field. In 1956, Lucy and Desi came in on the athletic field behind the school. You get to see just a little tiny spot of it because the school takes up the entire viewpoint. And when the kids greeted Lucy behind the school and Desi, they stood together to form the words, "Hi Lucy, Desi," to be seen from an aerial view. Over 10,000 people were behind the school, another 15,000 lined 3rd Street. Now we are in the snow belt, for those of you that don't know. But that year it happened to be rainy, it was slushy, dirty snow and rain. And Desi braved the elements. He really rode the fire truck. He was right on top in the elements. Lucy, I think, was a little more protected at that point in time, but they were happy to be here. And of course, Lucy came here in 1944 for Grandpa Hunt's funeral, and again in 1946 for the war bond drive, and then in 1956 with her husband Desi, at which time she took him to her childhood home, and we'll be going there a little bit later on in the tour. To this brassy con artist, and Bill, I can't remember his last name. Bill Bemis, I think it is. Was that it? Yeah. He chose her. She was 18 years old. She was sitting at home in satin blue pajamas, long red fingernails, and full makeup. And he said, "You've got to play the part of Aggie." And so she did. Her performance was so outstanding that the Chautauqua Institution, very prestigious to have anything performed at Chautauqua, asked for an encore performance of Lucille Ball to go ahead and perform there, so that she did. She never forgot him, she never forgot Bill, she never forgot the play, or the fact that people told her that she was actually a professional. And it was after that time period that she went back to New York, still trying to get into the act, and trying. And back in those days, they weren't paid when they auditioned and so on and so forth. So it was tough. She went into modeling. She was 5'7" and weighed 100 pounds, my birth weight. Yes. Holy cow, that's thin. She was like a glorified coat hanger. If you look to your left, go slow here. Okay, we have a peekaboo shot of Lucy and Desi on the near corner, and the far corner is Vitamita Vegemin. Okay, so there's 2 more murals. Another mural, the Candy Factory, is on 3rd Street. You can see it if you walk by it. So here on your left, built in 1875 by Dr. J.H. Thurston. This building has been redone by the Downtown Jamestown Development Corporation, remodeled, but they use the original cast iron filaments to line the roof. It succeeds in giving the block the look of the late 1800s. Also, there are two restaurants here, Labyrinth and Brazil. Brazil is more of a bar lounge, and Labyrinth for those folks that like to have healthy entrees such as like hummus and protein things, vegetarian things, coffees.
And it was the best thing.
Desi Bowl.
Desi bowl. What's the Desi bowl? Black beans over rice, Cuban seasonings. Oh, sounds good. On your right, St. Luke's Episcopal Church. This is where the ceremony was held for the passing of Robert H. Jackson way back in 1954. And we're going to be rounding the corner here, and on your right you will see the Hotel Jamestown building. It's no longer a hotel. It does house senior citizens at affordable rates. In the day, this was the place to stay, and Lucy stayed here with her mom, and again by herself. She stayed with her mom for Grandpa Hunt's funeral, and she stayed in 1946 for the War Bond Drive, at which time she would go down in the coffee shop and mingle with the locals and, the fans and the reporters, actually. Yes, they are apartments now. Yep. And today there is one of the rooms there is called the Crystal Ballroom. It is still used today for wedding receptions and for gatherings. Many different clubs hold events there. It has a beautiful staircase leading to the Crystal Ballroom. That's still there in the hotel. And if you have a chance while you're walking, take a look at the tops of these buildings, because there's a lot of scroll work done. You don't see that anymore, and once they get torn down, they don't rebuild them like that. So we have a lot of old world things here, and I don't know, for those of you that don't know, Jamestown was one of the leading furniture manufacturers in the world at one time, and the immigrants came from Sweden first, then Italy, but these folks were very talented people that could handcraft wooden furniture. I have some of the furniture left from my grandparents, and it's beautiful. It looks a lot better than I do. It's lasted very long, in very good condition. Had furniture at her home in Beverly Hills on Roxbury Drive. She had it airlifted to her home, and I think Lucy, I would have loved to have talked to her, because I think she had such a connection, but the door wasn't, it just was a little bit tough to break through. And she really was dedicated to the Jamestown area. She kept in touch with her friend Marion Strong, you folks know us from the show, and Marion Van Vleck are one and the same. Okay, she was married twice, and she kept in touch with her throughout all of her performing years. She'd write notes, or wrote a note to her. I happened to see her booklet that she kept, and it was really amazing. She'd write on a napkin, she'd write on a hand towel, or something, and send it to her. And
I stayed in touch with Marion Van Vleck after Lucy passed away for a long time. Marion just didn't want to say goodbye, and I enjoyed talking to her in letters. But Lucy was very close to Marion, and another lady named Pauline Lopez was her whole life.
Pauline ended up being a guidance counselor at one of our high schools in the Lakewood Bustye area, and she lived in that home her entire life. And it's next door to Lucy's childhood home, so we'll be going by there. Yes, she could have been. What's unusual about the I Love Lucy show? Number one, there were no rules back then. Okay, so everything that Desi did to get this up and running, it was hit or miss. Okay, and he hit more than he missed. He was he had the insight, he had the guts, the gumption to go ahead. And in my mind, he was like a workaholic. I mean, and a perfectionist, visionary. That's a great word for him.
People would say, "Oh, you can't do that," and Desi would say, "Watch me."
Yeah. When he got Carl Friend to help him with the three-camera method of blocking, three-camera blocking method, they told him, "Oh, you'll never get him." He was an Oscar-winning cinematographer, And he's welcome to call him anyway, and he did get him. So, Desi contributed to today's performances. The rerun he was responsible for. Whether he knew it or not right at that moment, I don't know, but because he insisted on film, so he made home movies for us, basically. The 3-camera method of filming and the warm-up of a studio audience. So
He was the most charming man I ever met.
she said, Wanda said he was the most charming man she ever met, and the employees would say that. And they never lost an employee. That says something. Yeah, and they went from, I believe it was like, it was a very small number to begin with. Like 7, I think he started with, then he went to 100, and then they went to 2,000 in the busy seasoning. Nobody ever left. That's quite a tribute. Yeah.
3 Desilu studios, 2 in Hollywood and 1 in Culver City. It was all Desilu. Most shows in the 1950s were done through Desilu. But the children were very close to their father, and Desi was still very active when I started working. I didn't work for Desi, but he was charming. Everyone respected him so much, and Lucy called him for advice until the day he died. Because he would tell her, she knew Desi would say, "Yeah, that's great," or "You can't do that."
Great person to have access to, huh? Yeah. I think their story, in my head anyway, it'll always be a true love story. But it was such a variation in their backgrounds, and finally at the end sometimes things don't work out. But they ended up, I think, fairly comfortable with their mates. Desi married E. Mac Hirsch, and she was a dancer, I think.
She certainly might have been. She was in the horse racing circuit too.
Yes.
And she had a son about Desi and Lucy Jr.'s age. They were still friends. As they grew up.
Did you know Gary Morton?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Gary didn't embarrass her in public as Desi did. That's all. They were married for over 20 years. And of course I knew Gary well. They had both remarried by the time I started working for Lucy. And I knew Gary well, but I also knew Desi and Edie.
And then she stopped by to say hello to us. That was pretty nice of her. Was it a glamorous world?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was glamorous, but Lucy was one of the hardest working people I ever knew in my life. She could do anything. She never asked anyone to do anything that she couldn't do herself, and probably better. She was a hard-working woman.
Okay. On your right, the reason we're stopped here is we're out of gas, so you all have to walk back. But on your right, you will see the New York State Armory. Lucy used to perform in 1930 in Brooklyn Square area, which was the center of town, where I showed you the viaduct early on in the trip. Underneath the viaduct was the area called Brooklyn Square. And they had an armory down there, and she would perform an effort to raise money for our local hospital. Then throughout her years, once she became famous, she would send 1 item or 2 items a year, and they would go up for auction in an effort to benefit the hospital. And that was held here in this building for many years, until the events of 9/11. This building was open to the public. Children had Halloween parties here, Easter egg hunts here, Christmas parties here, people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. But after 9/11, the doors were closed to the public. It's home to our National Guard, and it houses some of today's New York State federally owned military vehicles. So this is the armory, built in 1932. It's an example of Second Empire Gothic revival. Not open to the public, nope. And I don't know how many people have noticed our pink brick streets. We're on one. When I was a kid, most of the streets here were pink brick. And they were beautiful. They really were. They added so much color. But what happens over time, because we live in in an area where the temperature varies widely, we're the snow belt, and they would contract and expand and bubble out of the ground. So when that happens, yeah, then they didn't have anybody that knew how to repair them anymore. So what they did was they carpet coat the blacktop the roads. Yeah. Yep. Big rooms. Any questions? Yes. How was your interview? How'd you get the job?
Good question.
When I went to California from Oklahoma in 1960 with another sister and her husband who were in the Air Force at Vandenberg Air Force Base. And my sister Bonnie had said, "Why don't you go home with us?" And I said, "Why not?" I'd worked at Travelers Insurance Company in Oklahoma City for 6 years. So I drove back to California with them. The first Christmas we were there on Gaviota Beach in bathing suits having a picnic at Christmas. So I liked it there. And when my sister and her husband were discharged, they went right back to Oklahoma City. I drove down to LA and started looking for a job and found one at Look magazine and met Cleo Smith. And Cleo was, actually she was Lucy's cousin, but raised as a sister with Dee Dee's children. Dee Dee, Lucy's mother, and Cleo's mother were very close, loving sisters, and they were living together at the time that Cleo's mother died. So Dee Dee just kept Cleo as another child. Lucy and Fred, her brother, called Cleo sister until the day they died. Anyway, I stayed in touch with Cleo. A couple of years later, I was looking for another job. Cleo was working for Lucy at the time at the studio because she bought Desi out. And she said, "I don't need a secretary." "Why do I need a secretary? I do my job." Desi put all these people in place at department heads. They do their job. But after a few meetings with those department heads, she said, "Maybe I do need a secretary." And Cleo said, "I know a girl. You want an interviewer?" And Lucy said, "Oh, no. If you like her, she's got the job." So that's how I got my job.
Okay, so we're headed down Stewart Avenue, and this is the birthplace of Lucille Balls. She spent no time, to say so, in this home, but the apartment belonged to, it was an apartment house, and the apartment belonged to Grandma and Grandpa Hunt. Her grandmother Hunt was a midwife, a very well-known midwife in our area, and she brought Lucy into the world. Her daughter Dee Dee traveled from Montana, pregnant, and came here and had her daughter born here, and then when she was well enough to travel, she went back to Montana and rejoined Henry, her husband. And it'll be on your right. It's a dark brown house with an American flag on it, and I don't see the flag anymore, but it must be there.
Do you see it? I can't see over the
It's,
sides. Oh, I see it.
yeah, it's on your right.
We'll have to drive back
If
in.
you take a peek through the trees here, there you go. Yeah, there's the flag. So, in the back of the house, top floor, that's where Lucille Ball was born. And you can take pictures. We'll slow it down here for you.
Can you take a picture, Tyler? It's on video right now. Yeah.
It's a privately owned home. It's not a historic marker.
I have to
And they
Does that do work?
it's
change the
remained that way.
resolution.
Oh, thank you.
Did everybody get a picture that wants it? Okay.
We'll come back.
Yeah, we can come back and better.
Yeah. That's so cool.
All right. How many people is this their first trip here? First trip. Yeah. See, they're from Florida. Yeah, I've had a lot of Florida people today, even on the first tour. First tour too. Yeah. Washington State didn't have it before. Thank you for coming. The furthest I've ever had on the tours since I've been doing them was a lady from Australia, and she came specifically for this and nothing else. Yeah. It's a long time ago. When Dee Dee was pregnant and came here, you know, Dee Dee's life was not what you would call an easy life. And she was a product of the roaring 20s. Lucy, for some reason, her own makeup, she knew wrong from right, and she was very focused on what she wanted it to do and be, and so on and so forth. Living proof is what's written about her, I guess, and some of the stuff Wanda said. But Dee Dee was married in 1910. 1911, she has Lucy. 1915, her husband, Henry Durrell Ball, age 28, passes away. That's a lot to take in just a short period of time. Then she gives birth to another child 5 months after his death. So Fred was born never knowing his dad. I had the privilege to meet Lucy's brother, Fred. He came here at 91 years old, and that was the last that I ever saw him. He died in 2007, and he's interred with the rest of the Ball family at the cemetery. You'll see the grave when we at the end of the tour. Very emotional trip for him. Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it was heart-wrenching sometimes. But he was glad to come back. He hadn't been back since he was 15. Yeah, he graduated high school in New York City. He joined Lucy out there eventually. And she did take Dee Dee and Grandpa Hunt to New York City with her. Grandpa Hunt was kind of distraught till they landed in Hollywood, California. Lucy and her brother pooled together, and I want you to catch this late. Pooled together and rented a house on Ogden Drive. I believe it was 1344 Ogden Drive, and had her mom come. Did you know Dee Dee very well?
Oh, very well.
Oh, I'd like you to talk about, I'm going to request
Yes,
that. I'd like you to talk about her. I'm going to point out the Broadhead Carriage House here. On the right-hand side of the road here, you're going to see some greenhouses. They've got like a half-circle roof. I want you to look in between the peaks. There's a building behind those greenhouses. It's a block building, gray block building. It's got a red line going across the top. That was actually one of the Broadhead carriage houses in one time. Today this business is Bergiota's Grocery, okay, Bergiota's Farmlands. And they have wonderful Italian subs, or any kind of sub actually. All the meats are fresh cut. And if you have a chance to get up here and taste some of this stuff, they have great produce. Tell them Lucy sent you, because I get a better Christmas gift. They're my cousins. Okay? But back there is where the Players Club was. So Bill Bemis and the Players Club put on a private dinner for Lucy in 1956. Oh, you missed it then.
Well, I mean, I can barely see back there, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's just that stripe. Yeah, you might catch a little bit here, but it's too, the building is too far that way to see it. Oh, no, you can see a piece of it there. Okay? So that's where they met. In 1956, big doings here for Lucy and Desi. They had a private dinner. The leaders of the community were there, the manufacturers of the furniture factory. Our furniture was so outstanding, they actually built a building, the Furniture Mart building, which is across the street. As you're facing the National Comedy Center, it's on the left, right on the corner. And it was built with the sole purpose so that the manufacturers could put their wares in room-like settings, so you could see what a bedroom looked like or what a living room looked like. And people would come from all over the world to purchase that furniture. I'm talking furniture dealers and so on and so forth. So it's very fine furniture, it's very sturdy furniture, and that's what Wanda was saying Lucy had in her house. So,
Well, Dee Dee was a lovely lady and hardworking, as this Lucy earlier said. Dee Dee she worked hard all of her life, but she was just marvelous. And Lucy took care of her mother. As soon as you already mentioned it in New York, but when they had her first contract in California, it wasn't a huge amount like they get now. But the first contract, she brought her mother out to California, and then gradually she brought Fred out, and she brought Cleo out, and the rest of the family. The family was so important to Lucy. But Dee Dee, she had a lot of friends, and they all came to the show with her. She always had a car full of friends, 6 or 8 people, coming to the Thursday night filming of the show. And Dee Dee was in. I can hear Dee Dee's voice in the audience when I watch an old show. I can hear Dee Dee laughing.
I think you pointed that out to me one time because I don't really know if I could pick it again, but
I bet you could because
there's one laugh that is very pronounced.
that's Dee Dee. Anyway, Dee Dee was lovely. I knew Fred very well too. Fred, I stayed in touch with Fred. Little Lucy used to arrange family get-togethers, and Fred had a beautiful motel in Cottonwood, Arizona, called the View Motel, and it had a view vista, gorgeous. And Lucy would bring whatever family she could find left there to have a family reunion. And Fred says, "Okay, Friday and Saturday is free, but if they stay Sunday, they're going to pay." And I went to I think I went to 3 of them over the years. And Lucy would twist her brother's arm to get him to go, because Desi now lives in Boulder City, Nevada. He doesn't.
Desi Jr.
He's not driven to work like his sister is and his mother was. He plays his golf, he writes his music, and he's happy just to stay home. Where little Lucy likes to do things. But anyway, we were talking about Fred. Fred had 3 daughters and 1 son, all with 3 different wives, actually. But his last wife I knew very, very well. And Fred was he was working at the studio for Lucy when I first started working for her, and they stayed in touch. Well, the rest of his life.
What was her name the last time?
Zoe, but you know what? Not Zoe, just Zoe. But that stands for another name. Frank always knew it, and I can't remember it. Like Zorita, but Zoe was her name.
When he mentioned how he married her, he said he saw a beautiful set of legs coming down a stairway in the.
Well, she worked in the accounting department at Desi Food.
Yeah.
Fred was kind of heading that for a while.
Yeah. If you look to your left, this is just the site of the old Celeron School that Lucy attended. Today it is a business. It's called the Resource Center, and it's a center that helps folks that have disabilities. So it's one of our largest employees right now, as a matter of fact. And we're going to be making a left onto Lucy Lane. But Lucy started the Dramatics Club here in her freshman year, and then donated the proceeds from their play to the next class to keep the Dramatics Club alive. But she and Pauline Lopez were the leads in a play called Charlie's Aunt. And she carried Lucy printed posters, sold tickets, and carried furniture from her house just a block and a half down the street here to use as props during the play. Her principal, Bernard Drake, and her favorite teacher, Lillian Appleby, who I'm told did go to California to see Lucy one time, encouraged her to go into performing. Grandpa Hunt was also instrumental. He took her to vaudeville acts. Ed Peterson, the second husband of Dee Dee, was instrumental as well. He took her to hear a monologuist, and she was, his name was Tannen, his last name, and she was so impressed. He sat on a black stage, with a light over his head, and she said he transported us to different places, and she was mesmerized by that. If you look on your left, this beige house with the kind of brownish shutters, this belonged to Pauline Lopez. And the next house down, the little gray house that is painted gray and gold right now, is Lucy's house, Lucy's childhood home. She lived here from ages 8 and a half till almost 16 years of age. This was Grandpa Hunt's home. This was the home they lost. And Lucy had many fine memories here and some sad memories. These folks are dressed as the Martians from, of course, I Love Lucy. And if you have a chance, they are having their garage sale. And for those of you that have cars and can come back on your own, you're more than welcome.
That is too funny. I don't think that happens.
So we had wonderful events in this house, a wonderful upbringing until suddenly there was a tragedy here. The first time Lucy was affected was 1922 at age 11. Her grandma died of uterine cancer, and she always donated to the Cancer Society throughout her lifetime because of that. In 1927, it was Fred's 12th birthday, and Grandpa bought him a 22, and they were out back target practicing, and the little boy on the corner's name was Warner Erickson. And Warner was trained that when his mother yelled out, "Warner, you better get home or you'd get in trouble." So they're taking turns at shooting targets, and there's a little girl that Fred had met. Her name was Joanna Ottinger. She was from down south somewhere, and she wanted a turn to shoot the gun. And Grandpa was supervising. Everybody was sitting, where they were supposed to be. And just as Joanna fires the shot, Warner's mother calls for him. He runs in front of Joanna. The bullet lands in his spine, unfortunately. He was 8 years old and he was paralyzed from the waist down. He died 5 years later at the age of 13.
I didn't know that.
As a result, the Ball family, Hunt family, lost everything. Now remember, back in those days, there was no Social Security, no pension plans. So everything Grandpa bought this house for, like $2,600, it was worth about $4,000 at the time of the shooting. They got much less than that for the house. So they lost everything. He went to the Mayville jail. This tore Lucy apart. She loved Grandpa Hunt. He went to Mayville, which is our county seat about 16 miles west of here. And he was in jail for a short period of time, but had to remain within the confines of Mayville for 1 year. They had relatives out there. They were very poor. And he really wasn't well nourished. He lost a lot of weight, wasn't doing well. But then he did return home, and he returned home, but he was a depressive type situation. And Lucy always watched out, as Wanda said. She always watched out for her family and tried to keep them together. And one thing nice about the Ogden Drive house that I'd like to share with you is that Ann Southern, I don't know if any of you, everybody know Ann Southern? She was a movie star back in Lucy's time period. And she was very helpful to Lucy. She went to the little home and helped her paint everything white and hang gingham, blue and white gingham check curtains. And so they made a nice little place for themselves. And Lucy and her brother paid the rent so that Dee Dee and Grandpa Hunt could come and live with them. So that was off of Hollywood Boulevard on Ogden Drive. Yeah.
Back there where he just threw, was that, I'm not sure I'm saying the name right.
Chautauqua?
Was that the Chautauqua River?
Yes, lake.
Of Lake.
The lake, by the way, Chautauqua Lake, lady has a question about it. It's about 20 miles long, 2 miles at the widest point. The Côte de Celeron is who came to the area, and thus the name of this little village is Celeron. The lake Chautauqua Institution, the beautiful summers we had, attracted the wealthy people from New York City, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Ohio areas, and so on and so forth. And they came to spend summers on the lake. The entire lake was ringed with hotels and bars, so on and so forth. Well, what happened then? Prohibition hits, okay? That started the demise of everything. It was the Prohibition hitting. The hotels closed up, the bars closed up, the people didn't come anymore. The park was actually built by the Broadhead family. Mr. Broadhead had gone down south, saw a beautiful park in North Carolina, and he said, I want to bring this to Jamestown, New York. So they had a Ferris wheel here. It was the largest one in the world at the time. It was called the Phoenix Wheel. It was 400 feet tall and carried 200 people. The roller coaster here was a real thrill. It had a loop of it that went about approximately 12 inches above the lake towards the end of the ride. That was all wooden. But in the late 50s, really late 50s, is when the demise started. By 1962, 63, it was done. But this area, all of this area, so you look to your left, you see a beautiful hotel there, the Chautauqua Harbor Hotel. Yes, and if anybody, is ever around to stay in a hotel or you'd like to take a look at it, beautiful place, really worth seeing. We're going to turn into the Lucille Ball Memorial Park. Of course, this has been renamed. And if you look to your left where the black truck is, the statue in front of it is referred to as not an attractive statue of Lucille Ball. It's Vitalita Benjamin, and the redone one is right here in front of the playground, which is great to have the playground behind her because it stands out. If you look straight, kind of off to your left, you see the red roof covering. If you look to the right of that, there's the Desi Arnaz band shell, and Lucy Arnaz Jr. came here and dedicated this to her father's memory. She brought an 18-piece band. We were all out on the grass in the parking lot. Everybody was dancing and singing away. It was a really fun time. And now today you see people getting married here sometimes. They might be having a little luncheon sometimes. And they're redoing the park for the children. The Hart Hotel people refurbished the basketball courts here. One of the owner's son is very interested in becoming a pro basketball player, so he's put a little bit of effort into this park as well. So, there you have it, the Lucille Ball Memorial Park. And I so wished you could take a picture through the window. Yeah, I can't. Something to point out to you that in this small area of land where the hotel is in here, over 10,000 people could be seated at any one time. The convention center held 8,500 people, and the theater held another 1,800. So making it possible for over 10,000 people to be seated here at any given time. John Philip Sousa conducted the band here. Duke Ellington, Guy Lombardo, and Rudy Valley appeared here, along with many, many other, like Harry James era type people. And Lucy would go to the Pier Ballroom, which is no longer in existence. It burned down in 1930 from a fallen cigarette from somebody, because of course back then the buildings were wooden. And there's a cute little story about Lucy. When she was a kid, teenage years, there was a auto accident. One of the wealthiest people in Celeron drove her car into the railroad tracks. And Lucy happened to go at the site, and she found some beads and returned them to this lady. And the lady gave her a solid gold watch in return. So, yeah. Any questions? Okay. This group is quieter than last week. I think they had lunch, maybe. They're a little bit quieter. Anyway, I hope you're having a good time. If you have any questions, please let us know, okay? And I'm happy to try and answer them for you. Yes? Of course, you don't really know. She says my knowledge base is remarkable. I might be making all this stuff up. What do you know? From the time I was a kid, I loved Lucille Ball. So, and I was actually watching reruns because I was born in 49. The show aired October 15th, 1951. So at 2 years old, I don't think I was watching anything really. But, as time went on, I was really watching reruns without really knowing it. Until 57, I would know that. And I lived here all my life, and I loved her. And every time in school there was a project, you had to pick a famous person. I picked Lucille Ball. So I read about her, over the years. I've seen a lot of conflicting things, and that happens with anybody, whoever's writing and so on and so forth. But I try to stick to the core stuff. And I think she was such a fine driven, like Wanda says, work-oriented, I can do it type of person. And then Desi was the icing on the cake for me because he made it possible. You know, no was not in his vocabulary. No, you can't do this. Not in his vocabulary. So, yes. Is it true that she did? I'm going to have to ask her that. That I don't really know. I know she got hurt on a few of them.
Yeah.
I do know that. She dropped 19 pounds in Wildcat. She got a horse stepped on her foot. That's why she ended up wearing open-toe shoes. You know, but I don't know. Did she do all her stunts? Is the question. I don't know.
There was a stunt woman who worked for Lucy on a few movies, but on the Lucy shows when I started, and I've heard stories about Lucy. They said if Madeline could do it, Lucy could do it. Madeline was one of the original writers from the radio show days. So Lucy, all those crazy stunts that I witnessed, Lucy did.
She did.
Okay.
There was always a good reason for her to do those crazy things.
All right. That's interesting to know, really, because she wasn't a kid when I Love Lucy started. You got to remember that. This is a 40-year-old woman who just gave birth to a child, her first child, like 6 weeks before the show aired. So it's pretty remarkable, really. Yeah. What was the favorite thing you liked of her? Anything come to your mind?
Have you got about 27 years? Lucy was very generous and warm, and if you ever hear other stories, it's just not true. I mean, I was there. She cared about people. She worked hard. If you did your job, you were okay with Lucy.
Did you meet any other stars?
Oh, yeah. Who are some of the few that we would know?
Everybody that did the show. Carol Burnett, Lucy loved working with Carol. And Ernie Ford did the musicals. And you remember, Ernie Ford was in an I Love Lucy, too.
Yes.
Yeah. And we knew Teensy and Wincy. They came here several times. So everybody was very interesting and fun to work with.
Did you meet Dean Martin?
Oh, God. Dean was so good looking and so charming. And he always said Lucy was trying to kill him because Dean would walk on his sound stage, sing a song maybe, and walk off and play golf the rest of the day. Lucy rehearsed 4 full hours for 4 full days. And anyway, Dean was a good friend, and they had, remember Dino, Desi, and Billy? Your sons had a musical video.
Just so that I'll tell you the easiest thing to do is go over here, catch it left, and go back to Main Street.
Yes.
So, for Wanda, as the secretary, did Lucy have a favorite venue for lunch? Did she have a favorite meal for lunch?
Well, we did have, Lucy did her interviews, newspaper, other shows or anything, interviews were done on her lunch hour. And especially, it's so long to go into, but the ordinary lunch was a Cobb salad from the Brown Derby and grapefruit cake. And a studio driver would go to the restaurant, pick up the lunch, bring it back, and I would serve it up to whoever Lucy was having an interview with. And finally, after quite a many luncheons, I talked the Brown Derby into giving me a salad bowl because they put the salad in a box, and I had to toss in a box and serve up on plates. But I said, if you'll just send me a salad bowl, I'll promise I'll return it. And so I did. But that was Lucy's usual lunch, especially if she had an interview. And the story about the grapefruit cake, Luella Parsons was a famous Hollywood columnist. Just Luella and Hedda Hopper were about the main people, make or break a career in those days. Hedda was kind of Luella was kind of a tubby lady, and she kept telling Mr. Cobb was the owner of the Brown Derby, and she'd say, well, what kind of dessert do you have that's not fattening? And so he designed a grapefruit cake, see? saying grapefruit's supposed to be diet oriented, so we put a few pieces of grapefruit on top of this beautiful white cake, and Luella was kind of satisfied with that. Right. Anyway, that was our usual lunch, especially when she had an interview.
Particular person in the business that she was close to, a girl, like a girlfriend.
Well,
Vivian Vance, of course.
yeah, but Vivian commuted. Vivian didn't live. Vivian commuted, I think, when I first started, she was in Connecticut, and then she was in Santa Fe, and then she was in Northern California. So they didn't chum around because Vivian was racing to get home when the show finished and then come back on Sunday night for a Monday morning rehearsal. But Lucy admired Vivian so much. She always said Vivian was the best script doctor in the country. If something wasn't quite working, those two ladies could put their heads together and fix it. And that happened often. And she was great chums with Carol Burnett.
Yeah.
Not that they spent a lot of time together, and there was a big difference in their ages, but they had children the same age. Because Lucy didn't have her children until she was 40 and passed, and so they could share stories with the kids. As far as friends, a lot of Lucy's friends were backgammon buddies, old chums from high school. Lucy was not a party goer. I mean, when she wasn't working, she was home resting.
And did you know Harriet?
I knew Harriet. She wasn't working for Lucy by the time I started. She was a maid that Lucy had hired and was loyal to for the rest of her life.
Any other questions? We're headed to Lucy's final resting spot in the Lakeview Cemetery. How many have not ever been there before? And how many, no matter rain or snow or sleet or hail, are going to walk down there? How many? Okay. It's approximately 300 to 370 steps walking each way. So just to let you know that. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big cemetery, yeah. Yeah. It's pretty good size. The cemetery that we're going to, where Lucy is laid to rest, is the Lakeview Cemetery. And within the gated area, you're going to see 75 acres of land. Over 49,000 souls are buried there. The first recorded death in the cemetery is 1859, but the first death in the city was in 1815. Not all of the souls were moved. The original cemetery was under the Prendergast Library and extended over to Dow Park, which is now dedicated to slavery. It is to honor the slaves. And that is not too far from all the events where you folks are. We have notables in the cemetery. B.F. Goodrich is there. Grace Galloway. Grace Galloway is notable to us. She was a local person who died in her early 20s because of TB. They say she died on her wedding day. It's a glamorous story, but it's not true. She was away at boarding school in the East, or finishing school. Her father was wealthy and sent her dimensions to Italy and had a marble statue made of her. It is visible from Lucy's grave. If you tell me, I can kind of point it out to you. B.F. Goodrich married one of the Marvin girls, so that's why he is buried here. Then, of course, Lucille Balls, but there's other people in there. Governor Fenton is there. By the way, do we have any veterans on this bus? Veterans? Yeah. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you for your service. I do want to tell you about Governor Fenton from Jamestown. He set in place the pension plan for you folks so that you get something for your service, which is well deserved. He also lifted tuition on New York State schools, so any child could go to get a top quality education, and insisted that the teachers have a top quality education, leading to them being one of the highest paid teachers in the United States. So here you have the cemetery on your right, and notice there's a lot of narrow roads on the cemetery. This is used as a walking path. I've walked here for many, many, many years. You see moms with baby carriages here. You see people on rollerblades, skateboards, bicycling, so it's used as a walking track a lot, but it's nicely kept. There were at one time over 1,800 trees here, and I can't keep count anymore. They keep cutting them down because they're old and kind of, if there's a bad storm, you kind of worry about walking. There's a branch going to blow down. Now, you see the length of the cemetery. Lucy is buried on the south side, extreme opposite from here. Down here is where her father was buried. Okay, so they exhumed his remains, and he joined the hunt plot as well. I had people say, oh, Lucille Ball isn't really here, she's at Forest Lawn. Well, her cremains came here. Lucy and Desi Jr., thanks to people like you folks, said there are so many fans, we should move Mom back home. Well, her Uncle Fred said, Lucy's brother, as long as you move her cremains with Mom's, meaning his mother, because Lucy's wish was to be laid to rest next to her mother. So she arrived here in 2001 and was interred in 2003. Fred died, her brother Fred died in 2007, long after Lucy died, and was buried here in 2008. Now this is part of the cemetery to the left, but I don't have any statistics on that. I don't know. Yeah, it's filling up fast, I have to tell you. It never goes out of style. Darn it.
So I read on Google about her remains. That part of the work is Los Angeles.
Wanda was just saying she was here at the cemetery when they brought Lucy's cremains here. It was a very private service. Yeah, there was just a handful. Lucy and Desmond. Frank Goria was Lucy's major domo, so to speak. Yeah, he was there. And Wanda. Carol Cook was one of Lucy's students. Lucy revived a group, like a little theater group, and Carol Cook, a workshop, thank you. And Carol Cook was one of her graduates from that, along with the gentleman from, thank you, Robert Osborne. And I did get to meet him when he came. Very nice man. Very nice man. Very handsome. Mm-hmm. Yes.
That always matters.
So, and the reason Lucy did the workshop was because she was mentored by Ginger Rogers' mother, Leela Rogers, who they say was a Spitfire. And she challenged anybody. Lucy had to stand in at the last minute. It was set up by Leela. And she told the one of the producers, she said, you know, that's Lucille Ball, the one you said couldn't do the job. And she said she just got through one of the hardest things an actor ever has to do, is to be called at the last minute and say, hey, you're on tonight because the lead is not available. So, yeah, she would be quite, I'd love to read her autobiography if she has one. I'm sure it's good. But, okay, any other questions? Nope? Okay. See, I heard that no like that. I think maybe I'm talking too much. I don't know.
I mean,
Okay.
just out of curiosity, how did Lucille like her coffee?
Just out of curiosity, the question is, how did Lucille Ball like her coffee?
I think she drank black coffee. I don't remember her drinking a lot of coffee.
Okay.
Thank you. Now, we're going to head down and walk down together. Please be careful.
I hear Juanita talking. She's talking softly to another passenger, and she said Lucy was a fast driver. And she's telling a story about her and a chauffeur.
The three studios of employees and their families would have a yearly, maybe even twice a year, picnic party at the parks. I was before my time, but I've heard about them.
Any other comments, questions? Yes.
If they pick out
Vivian Vance originally.
How did they pick out Vivian Vance? I happen to know that story. And I believe it's this way. Mark Daniels and Desi went down to the La Jolla Playhouse. She was appearing in a play called The Voice of the Turtle, and Desi set eyes on her. Lucy couldn't go down to evaluate her or peek at her because she was pregnant. So Desi went ahead, and he said, she's perfect.
It's just an hour, maybe hour and a half south of Los Angeles.
About an hour and a half south of Los Angeles. So they picked her. Now, William Frawley, okay, was born in 1887. So stop and think about that, folks. That's a long time ago. And he lived the longest of the four. He lived till 79. Yes, he was the oldest one at his death. The one story that I heard from several was that Desi said to him, "Don't show up drunk on the set. You'll be done."
Desi had been warned about Frawley. Apparently had a reputation for a drinker, but Mr. Arnaz had that reputation too.
But he was at the head.
And as far as I know, and I wasn't there, but I'm sure my stories mainly came from Cleo, who it wasn't the National Enquirer stories, it was the family. Anyway, Frawley, by the time I started working for Lucy, Frawley was playing the grandpa on My Three Sons. And they filmed that show next door to our stage, so Frawley would come over and visit.
And I think Lucy's tender spot for him was he was a vaudevillian, and she loved vaudeville. So that was a thing. But Vivian Vance, they say, wasn't thrilled to be playing opposite him, but they worked together. Their professionalism was fantastic, which came through. I mean, it's fantastic. But she was used to being the glamour girl, the star.
Oh, she was glamorous.
And she was pretty. She was a very pretty lady. Yeah.
Rumors that go around on social media posts and all these. I love Lucy pages that I follow, and I remember seeing some type of a video interview with Lucille Balls' daughter, Lucy, saying that she really wished that people would stop spreading that rumor because it just absolutely was not true. And the fact that Fred and Ethel, William Frawley and Vivian Vance, that they really did not get along, that they couldn't stand one another. But in reading, how that actually happened, according to what I read and what Lucy said, was that whenever Vivian got the news that William Frawley had passed away, that she was like in a restaurant or something, and she just said, "Champagne for everybody."
I don't know. I've never heard that.
See, that's what I'm saying.
But let me one more thing about this because it's important, and I'm going to tell you.
Wanda, I'm just gonna say it. Can you guys in the back hear what they're talking about?
No.
Okay, so there was a bone of contention possibly between Vivian Vance and William Frawley, and then she celebrated his death. So Wanda's picking up at this point.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's not Vivian. But in the movie, besides it, Frawley, his main interest in life was the what do you call a racing tout sheet and a good glass of whiskey or something. Horse racing in particular. And that was the furthest thing from Vivian Vance's life. She was a cultured lady who worked hard. They had nothing in common. That's the main thing. Absolutely nothing in common. Now, how many people saw the movie Being the Ricardos?
Yes.
I happen to like it a lot.
Oh, is that Amy Poehler's one?
No, that was a documentary.
Okay,
Produced by...
because I tell you, that was good too. Yes.
Well, I happen to be a fan of Aaron Sorkin, who wrote it and directed it, and Nicole Kidman was wonderful. And Javier Bardem was a little older than Desi was, but he sure was attractive. But the thing of it is, Lucy admired William Frawley a lot. Nobody could play Fred Mertz better than Frawley played him. But Lucy and William Frawley did not meet after hours and discuss her marriage together. That just did not happen. But that's movie making. And certain when little Lucy first read the script, she gave Aaron Sorkin control, but she happened to say, "Now this didn't happen. You want to change it?" And Sorkin says, "No, it suits my narrative." But I'm telling you right here now, Lucy and William Frawley did not discuss personal things outside of working.
One thing I wanted to tell you, because I had two more things I was going to show you, which is not a make or break it deal, but I do want to tell you this about the writers. I was privileged enough to meet Madeline Pugh Davis once. The people that were Fred and Ethel Mertz were her across the street neighbors, and their names were Dr. Fred and Ethel Mertz. So when they needed, and if you know, Ethel has 3 middle names on the show. Ethel May, Ethel Louise, and okay, all right. So, and Roberta, and the reason that was, number one, they didn't realize there was going to be a rerun. That was number one, and number two, when she called and asked them, they said we'd be honored. What would happen in today's world if I used your name as money? Right? They'd sue the pants off. Not back then in those days, though. But I want to tell you folks, I want you to enjoy this festival to the max. Please see Wanda Clark. Wanda, where are you and when? Tomorrow, is it?
Tomorrow, I think it's at the Big Theater.
At the Reg Lene? At the Reg Lene tomorrow at 1 o'clock, is it? You can't remember. I can look it up, but check your booklets. So if anybody wants to see Wanda up close and personal, that'd be the place to go tomorrow. Catch that for sure.
And with my friend Rick Wyman. I couldn't do it without Rick.
And Rick will be there with her. He's wonderful. He's a Lucy expert to the max. And he has been great. Nice addition to our community, and it does very well to include you, Wanda, and we're privileged to have you here today. And Wanda's sister, who we're glad to have her here today too. A big round of applause for the bus driver who took us around safely. Thank you, veterans, for anything that you've done in the service. Okay, and I usually ask one favor. Are you guys up for it?
Sure.
We have like 5 minutes. Okay, and here it is. Did you like the tour?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, I want a favor. Okay. I want you all to sing the I Love Lucy theme song to me. Okay, and sing it loud, because if you sing it quietly, I'm coming to touch you and say, hey, louder, louder. Okay, so on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I love Lucy and she loves me. We're as happy as two can be. Sometimes we quarrel, but then how we love meet up again. Lucy kisses like no one can. She's my missus and I'm her man.
And life is heaven, you see. 'Cause I love Lucy and I love Lucy and Lucy loves me.